states are not able to pay salary. Bengal is paying salary. Bengal is paying pension. When you take debt, that debt you have to service. Center has the capacity to borrow. It can print money from Reserve Bank by monetization of fiscal deficit. They have the capacity to service that debt, which I don't have. They have understood in 5 hours, I'm hoping, Honorable Union Finance Minister and her team.
Hello and welcome on the Quint. Dr. Amit Mitra is the Finance Minister of West Bengal. He just attended the meeting of GST Council where two options were presented before the states and especially opposition states who are facing severe pressure. What kind of option they are going to choose, we want to understand from Dr. Mitra. Sir, आपने वक्त निकाला, आपका बहुत शुक्रिया. We just want you to explain to us which option you are going to choose. You have 1 week to respond.
See, I cannot give you options because we have no piece of paper. After 5 hours of discussion, 2 options were proposed by the Honorable Union Finance Minister. We were a little confused over those options because this requires a piece of paper. This is a financial matter, economic matter. So we assumed initially that what Union Finance Minister was saying is that for 1 year, there will be no debt to be taken by the state. It will be taken by the center and interest servicing will be done by the center was my initial impression. So I asked her directly that please tell us exactly what is the formulation. Then it became clear that there is some confusion on that because the center was perhaps trying to say that we will facilitate this debt. Our problem is the minute I take the debt, it comes into my books. I cannot take debt. I have no headroom. States are not able to pay salary. When Bengal is paying salary, Bengal is paying pension. But the stress for that you cannot imagine. So on top of that you take debt. And when you take debt, that debt you have to service. So therefore 2 options are given. We have asked that within 7 working days, you first send us the options. After that 7 working days, we'll study it. We may propose a 3rd option. We may propose a 4th option.
Okay. Sir, correct me if I'm wrong. The intention that came out from this meeting, what we have gathered so far, is that we have serious shortfall at our end. We are not going to give you the compensation fund that is guaranteed for all the states. And you go and borrow via RBI, you will have to pay lower interest. From markets also you can borrow. Basically central government is not going to borrow for you.
I think it is important to understand that Honorable Union Finance Minister very clearly said, which I have written in my letter to her, that in 39th meeting of the GST Council in March of this year, she said we will be responsible as per our commitment. So I am hopeful that when she repeated that in the meeting, that I am not going back on what I said. So now the question is, how do we, in a federalist polity, how do we solve this problem? States cannot. I said, first of all, center has the capacity to borrow. It can print money from Reserve Bank by monetization of fiscal deficit. Do the states have that? No.
Center is very that their balance sheet should not face any more stress. If there is a problem of debt to GDP ratio, it should be parked at the state level balance sheet.
See, this is the whole misunderstanding. When we take debt, center takes debt, the credit rating agencies, they do not take center's debt only. They take the aggregate debt. So whether we take debt or they take debt, credit rating agency, if you're scared of, कि उन्होंने हमें downgrade कर देंगे, they will downgrade India, they will take the aggregate debt. So whether I take, whether state takes or you take as center, it doesn't matter. The aggregate debt is what will be taken as debt GDP ratio, as fiscal capacity. So the first thing one should understand is credit rating agencies say, Darna hai, if you have to be scared of credit rating agencies that they downgrade us, whether state takes the debt or center takes the debt, it is exactly the same story. Number one. Number two, they have the capacity to take debt because they can print money
at a cheaper rate.
And second is the rate they will pay is about 2% cheaper than what the states will pay. And the third most important point is they have the capacity to service that debt which I don't have because I have no headroom. My salary is not being paid, pensions is not being paid in many states. How can you service the debt?
Sir, it is so logical, so simple, but do you see any intent on the part of center to buy this logic and not waste time? All states are in bad shape.
I think they have understood in 5 hours, I'm hoping, Honorable Union Finance Minister and her team, that this is the view I have systematically put forth, and so have many others. I'm hoping that at the end of that understanding, whatever options they send us in writing, fine print is very important. What are the words put there? We will study it with an open mind, under the condition that we don't have to take any debt and we don't have to service that debt at least for a period of time. You can say for 1 year career, you do this for 1 year, then we will review it in March next year. That's also, to me, that is something that is logical. Because by that time, we hope that COVID situation will improve. The economy will begin to improve on a natural course. So give us that headroom.
Okay. So the figure that we got was 97,000 crore via RBI or entire borrowing for 2.35 lakh crore for the entire year shortfall. You can go to market also. So this number is currently not important for you to consider. You are talking about the principle of the whole idea. And that is why you are not sure which option you are going to adopt.
Yes, the point is the principle has been laid out in the Empowered Committee of Finance Ministers in the Kolkata meeting with Mr. Arun Jaitley, late Arun Jaitley accepted. Principle was that states will give up 70% of their taxing power, hand it over and bring in GST in return for what? 5 years unbroken guarantee that you will compensate us. Then came the second stage with Arun Jaitley chairing the meeting. What is the percentage of growth of taxes which will be the benchmark? This decision was 14% based on 15-16 base. 14% growth nahi hua. If you didn't have 14% growth, you were 11% growth, 3% will get compensated. So that came as a figure. There is no going back on those two aspects. Because that was the moral basis, the political basis which went to Parliament in order to have an amendment.
What happens
101.
What happens to state finances, especially the large opposition-ruled states like Maharashtra and West Bengal, if there is a delay in transfer of funds to you?
So we are in very serious condition. Not only Maharashtra, Bengal, so is Rajasthan also, and so is Delhi. They all spoke up. Even Andhra Pradesh and Telangana spoke up. Tamil Nadu spoke up. Because Kerala spoke up. Even Karnataka spoke up. Chhattisgarh spoke up. Now you're talking about a whole bunch of states, some Congress, some ruled by Congress, some ruled by non-Congress, some ruled by BJP.
Among BJP state, you named Karnataka. Is Karnataka the only state which was on the same page as you, or other BJP states are also with you?
See, I cannot reveal state names. That would not be right because it's a confidential meeting. But I can tell you that at least 3 big BJP states are facing the same problem. So it's not an opposition versus center when it comes to state. They are having difficulty paying salaries. They are having difficulty paying pensions. Forget the developmental aspect. They are not doing any development.
So in terms of timeline, what do you think is going to happen? Because if you are not going to get this money quickly, then you will have to cut your expenditure. Where will you cut your expenditure? Salaries?
Center has the capacity to borrow. States do not. Center has the capacity to borrow at low cost. States do not. This is called GSEC, as you know, government security rates, which are much lower than states' rates. Center has the capacity to service this debt, which states do not. These are facts. And fourth is, commitment has been given, 5 years, unbroken process of compensation.
I hope I am entirely wrong, but what if they decide not to borrow for states?
See, I do not want to go into a hypothetical situation. Right now, what we are waiting for is the proposals. Out of two options, we may produce a third option. We may produce a fourth option. Center will study it. We will have already studied the center's suggestions, and we'll meet again after 7 working days, which will mean 10 days. And then there'll be something on the table.
Okay.
That these are your options, these are modifications to that option, but the principle remains.
Which is
we don't
cooperative.
have headroom to borrow, we don't have headroom to pay interest. And therefore, you kindly come along and keep your commitment. And I must say the Union Finance Minister said that she's committed to the fact that 5 years was given at the time of compensation. I'm hoping, and I've written that in the letter quoting her. 39th meeting of the GST Council, she said that it is on record. So I'm hoping all that put together, center and states will find a solution in a federalist polity. If it does not, the federalist polity will start getting unstuck.
Yeah, that is the last question I wanted to ask you, sir. So far, GST Council has worked with consensus. There has been no big differences of opinion among you all. But do you see are you apprehending for the first time there will be breakdown of consensus and the setback to the cooperative federalism?
See, I do not want to hypothesize for the future. I can only hope that this federalist polity will be preserved, and it would be a big shock to India if the federalist policy falls apart, where states after states after state, irrespective of political party, find that they're not able to manage because the GST compensation monies are not paid. Whether it is Maharashtra, whether it is Karnataka, which is BJP ruled, whether it is Gujarat, which is BJP ruled, whether it's West Bengal, Rajasthan, Congress ruled Rajasthan, Congress ruled Chhattisgarh, irrespective of party. Our problem is the same, and we would hope that center will understand that. Center has its own constraints. I have no doubt in saying that, but they have capacity to borrow. They have a lower rate of borrowing, and most important, of course, capacity to service that debt. This is the logic. And underlying all this, the commitment given by the current government, of the BJP government, under Mr. late Arun Jaitley, that they will honor this. And I'm hoping they will honor it. If
as you underline that,
the federal polity of India will fall apart.
That spirit should be followed, that you just reminded of what Mr. Arun Jaitley thought of the whole commitment that they made. Thank you so much for your time, sir.
Thank you very much.